Hey everyone, it's Betsy again, and we are going to solve inequalities using the distributive property. I'm going to teach you two different ways of doing it. But before we get started, I need to remind you, solving inequalities are very similar to solving equations with one exception. When you solve an inequality, if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you have to switch your inequality around. So if you started with a less than sign and you multiplied both sides by negative, you would end with a greater than sign. And I'm going to show you that today. So let's get started. All right, as you can see in number one, I wrote the problem twice because I'm going to show you two different ways of doing it. So I've got -3 times the quantity x minus 8 is less than 12. I don't want -3 times the quantity x minus 8. So what I'm going to do is distribute this -3 all the way through. So I've got a negative times a positive x, that's a negative. 3 times x is 3x. And then I've got a negative times a negative, which is a positive, and 3 times 8 is 24. So I took that 3 and multiplied it by everything inside the parentheses. And then I got -12. Now, I've got all my x's together, so let's box them out. So I'm going to take my x's and box that term out. That's the last thing we're going to do, just like when we're solving equations. But whatever's outside that box has to go to the other side of the inequality. So I've got a +24 here. It's got to go. And the only way to do that is to neutralize it. We want to make it so that when you add something to it, you get 0. Well, if I got a +24, I'm going to add a -24. But if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. We want to stay balanced. So when we do this, you notice these cancel, and we can bring down the -3x. Bring down your sign. Just keep bringing everything straight down. 12 minus 24 is -12. All right, just make sure you keep bringing everything down on the side that it's on. Now, I'm not done with this because I got -3 times x. I don't want -3 times x. I want x. They're timesing, so we're going to divide. And what are we going to divide by? A -3. And we have to do it to both sides to stay balanced. So these cancel to 1, but I divided by negative, so I got to switch my inequality, becomes greater than. And then a negative divided by negative is a positive. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And we are done. Whew. What do you think? Now we're going to do the same problem, just a little different. So over here, I've got -3 times the quantity x minus 8 is less than 12. On the left side, that's all one term. So what I can do right away, they're timesing by -3, so let's divide both sides by -3. That just eliminates that. Negative divided by negative is a positive, so I get x minus 8. I divided both sides by negative, so I got to switch the inequality. And then a +12 divided by -3 is a -4. Now, I'm not done because I'm solving for x. I want to get x by itself. So let's box out the term with the x. It's the last thing we want to do. Whatever's outside that box, we want to move it to the other side. So I've got a -8, so I'm going to neutralize it by adding 8. If we do to one side, we've got to do to the other. When I do that, the 8's cancel, comes 0. I got x, I'm going to bring the sign straight down, and then -4 plus 8, the 8 is bigger, so it's going to be positive. The signs are different, so subtract. 8 minus 4 is 4. You see, we get the same answer. Either method. Now, I'm going to do this again so you can see it one more time, but I want to show you something in the next one. So here we go. We're going to start by distributing the 2 through. You've got to read the problem first. -2 times the quantity x plus 9 is greater than or equal to 7. So I'm going to distribute this -2 all the way through. A negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times x is 2x. A negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 9 is 18. Is greater than or equal to 7. Now we got all of our x's together, so let's box them out. Box them out. Whatever's outside of my box has to go to the other side of the inequality. So take a look for a second. Think about what you're going to do. I've got that term with the x boxed off. So what am I moving? Well, what I see outside of the box on the same side is a negative 18. So that's what I'm going to move. I got to get it out of here. So I'm going to neutralize it by adding 18. If I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. And now you can see a negative and a positive, they're gone. I'm going to bring down my negative 2x. I'm going to bring down my inequality. 18 and 7 is 25. Now, I got negative 2 times x is greater than or equal to 25. I don't want negative 2 times x. I want x. They're timesing, so we're going to divide. We divided both sides by a negative, so what do we have to do to this? We got to flip it. And then a positive divided by negative is a negative, and we get 25 over 2, which is 12 and a half if you prefer, negative 12 and a half. Whew. You doing okay? All right. Now, on the next one, we're going to do like we did with the last one. We're going to take and divide both sides by a negative 2. This is when I don't like to do that. I'm going to do it with this problem just to show you, but I wouldn't do it in this case. So it's negative 2 times what's in parentheses, right? So they're timesing, so we're going to divide. When I do that, I get x plus 9. Now I divided both sides by a negative, so I got to switch the inequality. And then I get a fraction. And sometimes I don't really like to work with fractions if I don't have to, even though I love them to death, but many students struggle with them. So you might have been better off sticking with the first method on this one. So if I divide the both sides like that, I try to do it only if it works out. Like in the one above, when I took 12 divided by negative 3, I got negative 4. Here I end up with a fraction. And that fraction is negative 3.5, right? If you want to look at it like that. So I've got negative 3.5. Now, I want to solve for x. So I'm just changing the color up. Box out the x. What's outside the box has to go to the other side. Other side. And when I do that, I get x is less than or equal to negative 9 and negative 13 is negative 12 and 1/2. So x is less than or equal to negative 12.5, which is the same thing as negative 25 over 2. So either method works. You just have to be very careful because you got to make sure you divide every term by whatever that number is. All right. I hope this was helpful. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'd appreciate if you subscribe. Thank you.